Kasumi Miwa is quite commonly known as one of the most dangerous and powerful characters, not just in Jujutsu Kaisen, but in fiction, period. And while we all pretend she's weak because she's so humble and down to earth, yeah, you and me, in this video, I want to put some respect on Miwa's name by going over how strong she is and how she solos the entirety of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Warning, this video contains Jujutsu Kaisen spoilers, extreme agenda pushing, many lies, and several psychotic episodes. Viewer discretion is advised.
In order to accurately assess Miwa's latent power, a good grasp on the narrative implications consistently being made throughout the manga is critical. A common trait found in accurate Miwa scalers is enhanced literary analysis and attention to detail. So anytime you find yourself disagreeing with one of my assessments today, reread the entire manga until that changes. One example of my scrupulous reading skills bearing fruit: how about it leading to me discovering the importance of how she became integrated with Jujutsu society? The fact that Kusakabe is not only her teacher and mentor, but the one who scouted and recruited her into the world of sorcerers and curses in the first place is an example of this. These facts are important because this level of proactivity directly goes against much of Kusakabe's established laziness and character in regards to his job. So him going out of his way to adopt and mold this talent in the way that he did is indicative of her insanely blatant wells of potential. Pair this with the fact that he is considered the strongest grade 1 sorcerer by his peers and is even said to have a technique in his arsenal that got Nanami to verbatim say, "I don't know anyone who can withstand that, but I know a certain someone who doesn't need to." What Nanami is directly saying here is that Kusakabe's flurry of slashes could kill Gojo if not for infinity. Without infinity, we know Gojo can survive the full power of Malevolent Shrine, the peak of sorcery from what's widely considered the strongest in the verse. This means that Kusakabe's attacks can be stronger than Sukuna's domain expansion. Full stop. That's just what the text says, by the way. How does this tie back to Miwa? Oh man, I'm so glad you asked. You see, it's very consistent in JJK that the old get surpassed by the new in at least one regard, typically in comparison to their teacher or mentor figures. Yuta surpasses Gojo in Cursed Energy amount and raw potential. Hikari surpasses Gojo in RCT speed. Yuji surpasses Gojo and Sukuna in resilience, blah, 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 blah. For Miwa, this manifests as her simple domain proficiency, Cursed Energy amount, aura, base strength, and overall sorcerer abilities surpassing Kusakabe. You literally can't argue with me on this, by the way, it's narrative. Anyway, so what this means is that Miwa has a technique in her arsenal that allows her to out-damage Gojo's healing factor, which, by the way, could withstand the full brunt of Sukuna's domain. And what makes this even better is that this level of output is pretty consistent with Miwa standing at the epicenter of Sukuna's full power Malevolent Shrine, and not just avoiding damage altogether for herself, but protecting an entirely separate person. Many people forget or don't even remember the fact that while Sukuna's domain was incomplete here, that was due to the time limit, as it stated that the output and range has not decreased, only the amount of time he can maintain it has. You know what this means, right? Mahoraga, Yuta, Yuji, Maki, Kenjaku, Yuki, any character that can't just sit in Sukuna's domain and take its full might is getting turned into chopped liver by Miwa's simple domain quick drawing technique, and it's literally in the story, so you can't argue with that. Even if you were to argue it's inconsistent with the rest of the manga, even if you were to argue it's inconsistent with the rest of the story, that wouldn't work because Gege's so painstakingly woven feats and statements that place Miwa above pretty much every other character in the series. Yuta Akotsu, the guy who's inarguably top 10 in the verse and makes a solid case for top 5, yeah, that guy answers to the big dog Miwa. Don't believe me? Look at this interaction right here. Chapter 181, the wrapping up of Yuta putting belt to ass in Sendai Colony. Ishigori asks why he left them alive, and Yuta obviously answers that he needed their points, and goes on to tell Ishigori that he should be grateful to his comrades that let him live. And you know who it shows when he says that? You know, do you? It's not Megumi, it's not Yuji, it's not even someone like Tengen. The person we see walking through a path of destruction, checking to see if Yuta handled his business as he was ordered, is none other than the big Don, Kasumi Miwa. Gege is so clearly trying to tell us that Yuta and everybody weaker than him answers to her. Sure, it's Megumi's plan, and sure, Yuji's the main character, and sure, Hikari and Yuta are meant to be the muscle, but behind all of that, behind all of the smoke and mirrors, lurking in the shadows, demanding for her will to be executed, is the real strongest in the verse. Anyway, the point I'm making is that it's pretty consistent. Her blue hair, also proof that she's special, because let's think about it for a second. Who else in the series has blue hair? Meme? kinda. The sorcerer who reached the peak of pure physicality and has a technique that in her own words is so powerful that characters like Sukuna and Gojo avoid it in order to survive? Or maybe Kashimo, a sorcerer that was uncontested in his era and had to fight Sukuna firsthand to fight fulfillment. Oh, I know, maybe Mahito, the cursed spirit with like the strongest technique in the entire story and so much potential and talent that if given time, he could have been Sukuna 2.0. What I'm understanding, what I'm divining, what I'm grasping is that Kusakabe sensed the aura of greatness from Miwa upon seeing her blue hair, knowing that he tapped into a potential great. What he didn't know is that he'd be finding the strongest creature to ever live in Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I'm sure all of my fellow intelligent Jujutsu Kaisen readers are picking up what I'm putting down here, because let's be honest, there is an abundance of evidence placing Miwa beyond the realm of anything even characters like Gojo and Sukuna can begin to fathom. But just like with anything else, there's always going to be a subsect of skeptics, heretics I like to call them, that are unable to confront reality and accept the truth. So just for them, as a favor to all of these non-believers that disagree with me in the Church of Miwa, we're gonna spotlight some of her supposed anti-feats that keep her weak in the minds of these dissenters. Starting off with her first fight in the story and the underhanded theme Ngege approached this conflict with to dupe the audience, we have Maki beating Miwa. In the case of losing to Maki, that was merely a matter of her not taking the fight seriously and phoning it in, much like her teacher Kusakabe tends to. For all the JJK fans who actually read the manga or actually watched the anime, you would know that Miwa isn't able to really lock into a fight unless she's emotionally invested heavily or she actually cares about the goings-on of the battle. As we can see here, Miwa directly says that her heart wasn't in it to kill Yuji, nor is it in the Goodwill event entirely, in the same way characters like Maki or Mai had with their personal beef. Needless to say, she was essentially trying to accomplish the bare minimum she was required to do with the least effort, which is why she loses so quickly. Inumaki putting her to sleep? Another example of that, because it didn't even happen that way. Miwa heard Inumaki's cursed speech command and decided to take a nap in order to make him feel better. This blasé attitude of hers is actually a pretty consistent character trait pre-Mekamaru's death, as we see she's quite comfortable stepping to Gojo and telling him off without fear of consequence, despite his power being known amongst every sorcerer in Japan. This interaction is meant to demonstrate a pecking order of sorcerers, at least in terms of raw power. Now, if you're a fool, this may make you wonder why Gojo doesn't address Miwa in a particularly respectful way, or why she's so gassed to get a picture of him, and both of those have pretty simple answers, so have no fear. The picture was taken so she could sell it on eBay and make a quick buck for her family. I mean, despite how weak he is relative to her, Gojo is still pretty popular. And Miwa technically having a lower position in Jujutsu society relative to Gojo is a callback to Sukuna's mocking of the current era in the third chapter of the story. It's commonly misunderstood that he was talking about Gojo, but when he says hierarchies not based in strength are boring, it's actually a reference to the fact that he can sense they aren't going to see Miwa, who obviously holds the title of most powerful. Common mistake though, don't blame yourself for making it. Aside from Miwa's poor performance against Maki though, another question that's asked quite regularly is, why does Miwa call herself useless? Another question and another easy answer. You see, being destined for absolute greatness at a young age took a toll on the genius and gave her some slight self-image problems. And due to the fact that she still hasn't achieved her full potential, at least in her own eyes, she imagines many characters are stronger than her when in actuality, they are far from it. Think about how Gohan incorrectly power scaled himself relative to Goku and Cell in the Cell games, if you need a really good example. This is just a simple case of Miwa's overwhelming kindness and humility leading to a shrinking of her own capabilities in order to big up others. The next major anti-feat Miwa haters bring up is in regards to her performance in Shibuya when Kenjaku catches her blade. Once again, another problem that people like to think is a gotcha, but it has another answer. This is just a simple case of a mental nerf due to the grief of losing Kokichi, combined with her using this opportunity to achieve true happiness in the way that she was asked to. You see, by giving up her blade and thereby her trade as a sorcerer, she'd be able to live a happy and fulfilling life, just as was Mekamaru's dying wish. It was a rare and auspicious collection of circumstances that allowed a special grade sorcerer, with all of his cursed energy placed into his palms by the way, to barely withstand this very weakened slice. In the same way we all agree that Kenjaku isn't stronger than Gojo just because he trapped him in the prison realm, we all agree that Miwa isn't weaker than Kenjaku because he used every ounce of power to stop the slice of a mentally nerfed, unresolved Miwa. This is why, in case you were curious, Kenjaku counters by using maximum Uzumaki on her, because he understands that through some ungodly lucky set of circumstances, he may have found an opportunity in just one night to not only seal Gojo, but potentially take the greatest sorcerer in history off the board. It's hard to determine whether or not this mentally clouded version of Miwa would have taken damage from Kenjaku's maximum technique, as she had only a fraction of her true power, but he wouldn't dare pass up this opportunity. The final act, or lack thereof, that can be called into question before the Council of Miwa is the small matter of her not doing anything against Sukuna. You know, why didn't Miwa fight Sukuna before Gojo, or really at all if she was so strong? And this is an excellent question, one that the Church of Miwa gets quite often, but the answer is honestly pretty straightforward once again. She knew we got that. Through the use of a simple domain extension technique, Blue Brilliance, she was able to define who the victor of this great conflict would be, and saw that in every timeline the forces of good would come out on top, meaning she didn't have much skin in the game. We would have seen her kill Kenjaku, but her curse energy signature is so distinct and impressive that even if Kenny was having the time of his life fighting Takaba, he wouldn't be able to ignore that suffocating presence and would just flee as quickly as possible. Someone like Yuta, her underling by the way, who had a comparatively small and inviting aura, would be necessary to successfully sneak a sorcerer as wily as Kenjaku. And once he was dead, she honestly was just willing to let things play out. Now that we've gone over a decent chunk of Miwa's scaling and, kind of shut down her detractors, we can go over the very obvious outcome of her gauntlet against the entire Jujutsu Kaisen universe. Alright, so we all know and agree that Miwa is stronger than every character in JJK. In terms of speed, strength, durability, curse energy amount, and control, she's got that. But some characters have unique hacks or abilities that make dealing with them quite bothersome, or even impossible. So I compiled a short list of, let's say, reasonable war threats to Miwa's rule over the verse. The characters on this list, Gojo, Mahoraga, Mahito, Higuruma, and Takaba, I feel are pretty self-explanatory in regards to why they stand above the pack. All of them have unique curse techniques or abilities that make fighting them annoying outside of just their raw statistic abilities. Of everyone listed, I view Mahoraga as the simplest to deal with, just due to the fact that if it's destroyed before a complete adaptation can take place, it's low-key fodder when compared to the heaviest of hitters like Miwa. Even post-adaptation Mahoraga was getting shredded by Sukuna's domain, and Miwa and a flurry of attack scale above that, so she would just make quick work of the Shikigami. Following Mahoraga's swift defeat, Higuruma would be next up on the chopping block in terms of ease of defeat. Judgment likely wouldn't be able to successfully charge Miwa on account of her squeaky clean record and IQ stated to surpass Dodo's in a data book. Don't check that. So even if she had committed a crime in the past, she'd be able to defend against him in court pretty easily. For argument's sake though, let's assume Higuruma successfully gives her the death penalty and strips her of her cursed energy. The fight still doesn't end well for Higi at all, as even cursed energyless Yuji was able to contend and trade blows with him, and it is common knowledge that Yuji's natural physical aptitude was modeled after Miwa by Kenjaku, although he pales in comparison to her overwhelming physical might, obviously. Miwa's base strength, without the use of cursed energy, is honestly more comparable to a heavenly restriction users like Toji and Maki's, although she's 2, 3, maybe even 4 tiers above that. So she low-key just rushes him down and outskills him in sword combat. The remnants of this list, Gojo, Mahito, and Takaba, are all about equally difficult opponents for Miwa, which is to say they all get low diffed. I put them all in the same category though, because through varying mechanics and specifics, they are able to avoid or sidestep conventional damage. Gojo does this by preventing it from hitting him, Mahito is immune to attacks that don't harm the soul, and Takaba tends to rewrite damage using the comedian. They all get cooked by Simple Domain though. Don't believe me? Well, here are statements from Kokichi and Kenjaku arguing in favor of simple domains negating curse techniques outright, and the logic is pretty sound. Domains neutralize all curse techniques. Simple Domain is a simple version of that. Miwa knows how to use Simple Domain. Miwa can neutralize all curse techniques. I mean, I feel like it's a pretty basic syllogism.
But Ronin, how come no one else just uses Simple Domain to hit Gojo? How come more people don't use this in battle?
I don't know, man. Skill issue? Kusakabe shuts down Sukuna's world dismantle with an extended simple domain, and domain amplification is just a more target-specific version watered down for dorks and losers that aren't as skilled as Miwa. So yeah, I guess JJK characters are kinda idiots. Miwa opens a simple domain, and Idol Transfiguration, the Limitless, and the Comedian all get negated before they get blended up by the blue blur Kasumi Miwa. Even if she couldn't negate their curse techniques via simple domain, which she can, we know she can perceive the soul because she saw Kokichi's true form in the window after he'd already died, meaning Mahito is cooked. Gojo, after trying to trap Miwa in a domain and that not working, would get killed during a technique burnout, and Takaba could just get blitzed into oblivion before the Comedian activates to save his life. Simple as that. And with no more contenders, that makes a video.
Domain expansion.
What the fuck? Oh shit, I forgot Joko. Oh, okay. So you may be wondering why I included Joko when by all normal accounts, he's no stronger or more hacks than any of the other characters, curse or otherwise, mentioned. If you thought this, then I'm sorry to say, but you are a fool, an idiot, a buffoon, because despite Joko in his base form being pretty fodder in the presence of Miwa, Super Joko 1 and 2, his mainstream transformations, are dimensionally above 99% of the cast. Reference my full potential Joko video if you're curious as to why that's totally true, not fabricated at all, and super not a lie. But in any case, with these two power-ups, Joko takes Miwa to, dare I say, a mid-difficulty fight, and if she's not careful, she might sustain damage. The only true rival for her at max power is none other than Joko in his Jogoat form, the completed version of Joko, and a being that stands beyond the dimensions that you or I can fully comprehend. Yes, both of us. To throw these two against each other is akin to two big bangs occurring simultaneously and repeatedly. But an in-depth Joko agenda scaling video will have to wait for another day. He is responsible enough to not unleash his full power against one he considers an equal, and so for all intents and purposes, Miwa solos. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more super serious, hard-hitting analysis like this, check out this video where I pit Mahoraga up against the Demon King of Blue Lock, our glorious King Goat Sagi, and subscribe for more. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.